Hi, I'm going to provide a brief overview of the Vtrace visitor system. Vtrace is simple to use for visitors and staff to sign in. It allows entrance and exits to be easily recorded. It's incredibly useful for monitoring who is or has been in the building, and is particularly useful in the case of an emergency roll call. It can be used in either a manned or unmanned reception, i.e. you can use the software on a PC or you can use it in kiosk mode. This is usually for a touchscreen Windows tablet, for example, a Microsoft Surface tablet. But just to note, you can use it in any combination, so you can have it running on a PC and a kiosk, or either or several PCs and one kiosk, or several kiosks, etc., etc. So you can have, for instance, on a front reception and a back reception, or a front door and a back door, whatever works. But let's start then by just giving you a quick overview of the software. So first thing we come to is the dashboard. It's pretty simple. It just gives you a quick overview of the visitors and or staff that have been in the building on a particular day, week, and the year that you're currently in. As you can see, it's just highlighted by dark grey for visitors and orange for staff if you're using it for both. You've got three simple options here. You can do a who's signed in now, so if we click on that, that shows you exactly who is currently signed in on the system at the moment. If we go back by clicking on the Vtrace option there, you can do an emergency print, so we could print that same list. We could do an emergency email where staff could be set up to receive those emails, so you could send that in an emergency. I will come on to it in a few moments, but as well as this, there is a web portal. So ideally, what I'd suggest is done in any situation is that several members of staff of the organisation, what you would do is you would have that saved to your phone or iPad or wherever it might be. So in essence, if you did need to leave the building in an emergency, what you could do is you can look on your phone. Basically, you can see exactly the same list of who's in the building at any given time on your phone. So if you needed to go into the car park, obviously you probably don't want to spend too much time trying to print a list, possibly email or have a quick look at who's signed in, but it's there as an option. We've then got visitors and staff. This is how we manage our visitors. This is how we manage our staff. And our ellipses, three dots, we've got several options. We can come back to the dashboard. We've got reports, so we can generate a report on who's been in the last week, month, and you can sort of filter that by staff and or visitors. Analytics, much the same, just some options to give you an idea of who's been in the building. Kiosk mode we'll come on to. This is where we would go into kiosk mode if we want to use it on a touch screen, mainly kind of unmanned, or if you were going to have people to the side of a reception, that sort of thing. Settings, we can do a lot in settings. We don't have to. Out of the box, it's pretty much good to go, but in settings, you can do all kinds of things. You can change the wording of emails that are received by visitors and or staff. You can change the logo. If you're in kiosk mode, you could have your own organization's logo. Contact us is obviously to contact us should you have any requests, questions, that sort of thing. Remote support is for our technicians to be able to assist as and when they were speaking to someone if they're having any kind of issue or had any questions. Check for update is kind of as it sounds. About just gives you an idea, and then obviously we can log out of the system. Right. So first things first, this is in man mode. This is if I was using it in reception. So if I go to visitors here, I get a list of all my visitors. Now that doesn't mean just the visitors that signed in. That's visitors that have agreed to have their record kept on the system, or anyone that's been pre-registered, or anyone that's currently in the building. So if I wanted to do a quick search, I could find, there we go, we've got John Snow, and there's also somebody with Jones, so it's pulled that back as well. So that allows me to quickly find someone and sign them in, out, or I could go in and edit them, or I could see information on them. For instance, in this scenario, I haven't, but if I was recording their vehicle registration, for instance, what I could do is I could find that person, or I could search by the registration, and then I could find them to let them know, you know, please move your car, that sort of thing. Right, I'm going to get rid of that search, and we're going to go back. So, nice and simple, got lots of options down here, but they're all pretty self-explained. We've got add, so if we want to add a new one, if we wanted to click on someone and edit them, if we want to click and sign someone out, because these people are already currently signed in, so therefore we can only sign them out, we can't sign them in. If we want to print badges, depending if you're doing that, we can print a badge. We can reset documents and terms. Now what that means is, again, in the settings section, you can set it up so you can have up to 5 screens of documents and terms. So like a non-disclosure agreement, you can have set up a health and safety, you could have a car parking policy, pretty much whatever you want to say, up to 5 screens, but you don't have to have any. GDPR is a screen that is by default in there, and that asks people whether you're happy, if they're happy for you to keep their details on the system. If they agree, then that's fine. They will be kept on the system until they ask otherwise. Alternatively, if they disagree, when you set the system up, have the option and later date, if you want to change this, to set an amount of days for GDPR retention. And by that, what we mean is, if I say I do not want you to keep my details, as an organisation, you can decide what is applicable for you and what is appropriate for you in terms of keeping a person's details on the system when they've disagreed. So for instance, if you were possibly, let's say, a gym, maybe a week is plentiful. It depends on the situation, but perhaps if you were a prison, you possibly want to keep their details for several years in case it needs to be recalled upon, that sort of thing. So it's always dependent on what you feel is the right quantity of days for your situation, your organisation. Possibly, I would say in a general situation, maybe 30 days tends to be what people go for, because if there was an issue with property, if there was an issue in a car park, and or the world we live in, if there was any kind of medical situation and possibly people needed to be contacted, or you needed to know who was in the building, that sort of thing, then you've got them on record for as long as you deem is necessary. Anyway, right. So, and the rest is, as I say, we've got print badge. We can reset the GDPR if we want to change that amount of days or get people to agree again. History. So if we go and click on someone's history, you can see how many times they've signed in, out, what date, etc., and which location. And by location, what we mean is reception A, reception B, upstairs reception, downstairs reception, that sort of thing. Right, so if I go in here, I'm going to add someone, and nice and easy, we'll come in and we'll just call him Fred. Oh, Fred, and blogs. And as you can see, this is the simplest setup at the moment. Forename is needed, last name is needed, email is optional, and an image is optional. If you're using a webcam or if it's in kiosk mode, you can set that so they have to take an image, or they don't have to, but they can take an image, and they can either give an email address or have to give an email address. You can set whether it's required or just an option in here, and you can also do it within settings. But in the most simplest terms, I'm just going to literally, I can either sign them in or I can pre-register them. So if I know someone's coming tomorrow, what I could do is, if I put their email address in there, then they will, I'll tell you what, I'll do it with myself. If we go, okay, and what I'll do is I'm going to pre-register. Let's make sure I spell that correct. And in a moment, what you'll find is the visitor will receive an email, and it gives them just a general sort of welcome kind of thing. It also gives them a badge, sort of a QR code badge, so they can scan that with their phone if you're using a scanner. It also gives them the facility to add it to their Apple Wallet. So if they're using an iPhone, they can add it into their Apple Wallet, which means, generally speaking, when they arrive at the building or location, it will then pop up and it will say, because of the postcode, it will recognize it and it will give them the badge on their home screen. Just makes it a little bit easier, particularly as well with staff, if that's what you want to do. Alternatively, though, it will give them an ID and they can just sign in with their name. They don't need to have it, but it's just a good facility to be able to sort of do that. I will go and just pick that up. So we've got our email here. So we've got Fred Blogs. They've been registered with Vtrace Visitor System. We look forward to visit. So they've got that there. They can scan that, as I say, if that's what you're using. They can also use the Apple Wallet option to add it into their phone. And they've also got another contactless option where they can actually click sign in or sign out on the actual email. So it gives you plenty of options. This can all be edited. You can remove any of this should you wish. You can add it to it. You can obviously change this to your own. You've been registered with, uh, the leisure centre, whatever it might be. But that's that. And if we come back to our staff section, much the same. So if we go to staff, again, we can add staff. We can make the fields different. We can add fields that, remove fields, make them mandatory, whatever. The main sort of option you'll see that is different here are these emails. So when you're setting a staff member up, I'm just going to go, if I go cancel that and go to one of these, and if we edit that staff member, you can see that we could say every time someone signs in or every time someone signs out, or just the emergency emails, or when somebody agrees to a term and the GDPR is agreed or not agreed. So, for instance, I suspect most people probably don't want all of them. Emergency might be useful for everyone. Signed in and signed out, maybe like reception manager or something like that. The GDPR and terms, possibly a HR manager or a site manager. It's totally up to you. It's customizable. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to cancel that off again. Now, as I said, in both visitors and in staff, simply to sign them in, if they arrived and they walked into reception, we can hit sign in. Now, because it's the first time they've signed in, we have added one screen with some health and safety. So I'm going to say, would they agree to that? If it was a touch screen, they would obviously have to touch and agree to it. GDPR to make visits smoother. Would you be happy for us to keep your details? If you prefer not, for us to not keep them any longer than we deem necessary, then we'll disagree. I'm going to agree, and on we go. Thank you, Fred. You've signed in. This is customizable, but it's pretty just out of the box that we can do that. They can always review the terms, and we can either hit continue or after a short time it will come back to the screen anyway. Right. So if we go to settings here, as I say, got loads of things, but we'll only go over very briefly. So if we go to settings, here you've got your main location. We've got the language that we're using. And at the moment, we say that you could select a staff member. And by that, what we mean is that you could have it set so when somebody in a kiosk or the manned reception, there's the option to select the relevant staff member. And what that means is, so I come into the building and I know that I'm visiting, Fred Blogs. So I click on Fred Blogs and I sign myself in and it says, thank you, take a seat. And Fred Blogs will get an email to say, your guest has arrived. Organisation details are pretty straightforward. It's just all the details, telephone number, email address, that sort of thing. Useful to have it fully filled out because within the emails that are received by the staff and all the visitors, it can mail merge and pull parts of this through to make it, a bit more sort of specific to your sort of system, your organisation. Account preferences, here we can do lots. So the email that is received, so that was a confirmation, which I'm going to cancel that. The registered one that I've just shown you, for instance, so you could come in here and you could change the wording, you could insert other sort of mail merged fields, or we want the QR code here, wherever it might be, etc., etc. You can make it changed for staff because staff is slightly different, whatever you like. Image and logo, you can make where on the kiosk you'll see in a moment, you could change this to your logo. You can have a background image as well, should you want. We've got printer preferences, and when we click on printer preferences, you can select different cards, different labels, depending if you're using that. Video preferences, here you can, obviously my webcam is off, but we could select the webcam. We can say when they are taking a picture, particularly on the kiosk mode, it counts down just to give them time. It'll automatically start it. It sort of mirrors the photo, etc., etc. It's all pretty straightforward stuff. Scanning, if you're going to use it with a scanner, which is very useful, particularly if it's staff or you have a high volume of people coming in and out, then you can set up different options here, because you can use a physical scanner, and that's what we normally would recommend. But we have set the option that you can actually also use, if you are using a webcam, you can use that. So that will scan the QR code as well. Location, so as I say, if you had a front reception, a back reception, or an upstairs reception, down reception, or whatever that might be, you can set up different locations for the relevant device. Custom fields, lots you can do in here. As I said, you could come in and you could say, actually, that photo, we do always want to make sure that the photo is required. So I could come in here, tick that, and make that required. But what I'm going to do is leave that, and we could say, I want to add one. So I could do a text item, I could do a list, just one item option, like a checkbox kind of thing, or several editable items, or multiple items. So you could do all kinds of options in here. Depends what fits you. I'm just going to add another text box in this situation. So if I go here, I'm just going to put car reg, nice and easy, and I'm going to make it required. In fact, no, I'm not, because you might not have come by car. So we'll hit save, and what that means, I'll come back to this in a minute, but I'll just quickly show you. So now when we go to visitors and we add someone, it's asking for their car reg as well. So you can do all kinds of things, all the relevant fields, type of visitor, whatever that might be. To come back to the settings, if we go to the documents and terms, so here you have different terms for staff and visitors. So this is our health and safety one that we use, and then I could just come in here and I could call this one, as I say, car park policy, whatever it might be, make it visible, and that means that the next time people sign in, that's what they'll see. Users, this is to set up your staff. GDPR, here you can always come in and change it. We did allow the option to disable it. That's purely because we have customers outside of the EU and Britain, and some of them just literally don't want that option in there, which is fair enough. So I'm going to close that. Now, moving on, that's the quick overview of the manned sort of side, and also how to set things up. Lots you can do, but it just works straight out of the box, so you don't have to do anything if you want. It's pretty generic to make sure it sort of fits, nearly every sort of situation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my three dots, and now we're going to look at kiosk mode. So this is where it's generally an unmanned or possibly a side reception where you kind of just pass them the pad, or you have it on the wall and you direct people there, or as I say, if you've got no one there. And this is the same often. This is what people use for the staff side of things as well. So they'll maybe have one at the back or not. So just before I go in there, I'm going to go one last time to settings, and we can see in account preferences, we've got kiosk. And in here, it says when it will return to the home screen. Do we want it to give us the option for visitors and staff, or just visitors, or just staff? It's got some messages that we can put in there to, again, make it tailored for our required situation. And if we go back there, I'm going to go one last time then. So we're going to go into kiosk mode. This basically says what we're doing is we're going to go into kiosk mode, and it kind of locks the PC up so no one can get out of it, or the touch screen, the Windows Surface tablet locks it. And the only way to get out of it, so just general people that are using it, visitors, etc., can't just get out of the device and get into Windows. It requests and asks for your Windows password. So whoever's logged into Windows on the device or PC, they will need to type in their Windows username and password, just their password to get out. Now, that's absolutely fine. If you really wanted to go a step above, most people tend not to, but Windows does allow you to run a specific app, that one only app, and you can set that up so when the device boots up, basically it just logs into that one app. But I think in most situations, most people are happy with this kind of express kiosk, and it's nice and locked down because you've got your Windows security there. So there we go. That is how we have it set up. We've got a welcome screen. You don't have to have one. You can change the wording here, but I'm going to click it. Obviously, I'll be touching it on a touch screen. As I said earlier, we've got the option where we've got visitors and staff, but what we could do is we could just have that as visitors, or just have that as staff. Or if we've got one at the front for visitors and one at the staff at the back, we might have it set separately. Here, it gives every option. So I'm going to click I'm a visitor, and I'm going to say I'm going to sign in. and I'm going to say I'm a new visitor. So again, you don't have to allow this, you can remove this, so it's only existing people that have been pre-registered or have been added to the system before. Up to you. Again, it's nice and way to customize it, but I'm going to say I'm a new visitor, and I'm going to say my forename is Tom, and I'm going to click next, and I'm going to say Jones, and I'm going to click next, and I'm not going to put my email in because it's not mandatory, but we could do. I'm then going to say next, and obviously the camera's off, but I could say take photo. It's going to go like that, and it would take the photo, and I could retake it if I wasn't happy, or I could just move on. Now I added the additional field now of car reg, so I'll just put, whatever in there, and we'll say next. Again, we've got this set. You didn't have to have this set, but I'm going to agree to the terms, and anyone with the the email option ticked in terms of staff will receive a copy of that just as a reference. I'm going to agree to the GDPR, and there we go. Tom, you've been signed in. Now, again, if I wanted to go visitor and I want to sign out, now I'm going to say Tom Jones, and there we go. You've been signed out. It is very straightforward, very easy. If I go to visitors now, and if I say sign in, and I'm existing because Tom Jones has now been added, pre-registered. If I go in here and if I say Tom Jones and I search for myself, I come in, there we go. Nice and easy, very straightforward. If you are using it in terms of having a scanner, if you, for instance, are staff, you don't even need to come to this screen. It will stay on the screen, the scanner will be active, and you just put your QR code from your badge that you're wearing in a lanyard or off of your phone or on a label if that's so wished, and then it will just say boom, and it will say thank you, you have now signed in, or you have signed out. Easy as that. And just to show you, I'm going to exit this. So I'm going to pop in my Windows password, and what that will do is that will then take me back to the manned side of things in case I wanted to change any of the settings or anything like that. The last thing I'm going to go over is in settings. We've also got in account preferences, we've got scheduled tasks. This I do quite like. Basically, you can set a time if you wish, where it will automatically sign out visitors and or staff. So a lot of visitors tend to sign in, but whatever they tend to, depends what the reception's like, depends how the situation is. But if they leave the building, you tomorrow do not want them appearing as still in the building in case of an emergency. So you can set a time if your organisation closes at 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock, or you don't have to have it set, but if you do, what it does is the system will sign everyone out at the time that you set here. So that means that tomorrow you start afresh. As I say, you don't want to be in an emergency. I think there are 4 or 5 people that were signed in yesterday or the day before still in the building. And one thing finally, I mentioned earlier that there's a web portal that is sort of used in conjunction with this, which means you can see it without having the software installed. You just go to a website, log in, and you can see it. Now, I'm going to quickly just show you that on the PC. And also, I'm going to show you that quickly on an iPhone, for instance, but it can be used on any device that has a connection to the internet. So if we come here, dashboard, you can do a lot of the things you can do with the application. It's just not got quite such a rich feature set. So if we click on the who's signed in now, which is one of the most important, there we go. We've got an exact list, and we can see the same thing that we'd be able to see if we were on the application. So that's very useful. And if we come into here, again, we can add visitors, we can do all kinds of things, but sign them in, sign them out. And then quickly, this is just the iPhone version, which is, say, if in a roll call, you're in an emergency outside of the building, or just need to check who's in the building without going to the application, you can look on your smartphone and easily add it to your home screen and have visibility at any point without actually having to be in the building, which is always a bonus. I'll leave it there, and I will do some more videos in terms of different sort of aspects of the software, but hopefully that's a good overview. Thank you.